Protecting student data, we're combing through security information rules as a local school district prepares to roll out a new digital learning software.
As pay-to-play politics crept into Hurricane Helene relief. That was the question state lawmakers had today for some of the state's top recovery experts. We'll show you their answers coming up.
More moisture pushing its way in. All time out a big temperature drop and the hours we could see rain on our holiday weekend.
All righty, good to have you with us. Thanks for joining us here at 7 o'clock. I'm Dan Haggerty. Let's start tonight with the question that we have got for North Carolina public schools. Are you sure that our data is secure? You see, PowerSchool, that's the program giving parents access to report cards and other school stuff. They had this big data breach late last year. We're talking about thousands of people who had their data exposed. Kids, teachers, all kind of people. Now, WRAL has reported on this a lot. And just yesterday, a 19-year-old pleaded guilty in the investigation of stealing this stuff along with some other people. Now, North Carolina has since dumped PowerSchool. They got rid of it, opting instead for something called Infinite Campus. But is this company any better? Is our data any better protected in their hands? WRAL's Flynn Snyder went to find out.
What's going to happen moving forward?
That was the question on Wake County parents' minds, even after a guilty plea from Massachusetts college student Matthew Lane. He's admitted to helping hack education software PowerSchool that exposed North Carolina student and teacher data. As districts statewide now roll out a new digital platform called Infinite Campus, state officials say the program has to comply with these standards. Well, it's called the Statewide Information Security Manual. This 200-page guide breaks down security rules for education agencies and their contractors.
Will our children's data be safer this time, and how can we make sure?
Cybersecurity expert Kimberly Simon says the rules require multi-factor authentication and risk assessments. Things she says skeptical parents should be on the lookout for.
Are they right to have kind of that fear in the back of their minds?
These state policies are strong on paper, but they rely heavily on consistent enforcement by the schools and the tech providers. So if PowerSchool, happened despite these rules, it could mean that there were failures in implementation or oversight or compliance issues.
Right now, Johnston and Cumberland counties are among the districts already using Infinite Campus. A spokesperson with the Department of Public Instruction says staff worked with NC technology officials to approve Infinite Campus's cybersecurity. They go on to say, as with any third-party application that houses sensitive information, NCDPI and NCDIT do an annual evaluation and perform continual monitoring throughout the year. It's monitoring both experts and parents now hope will stop a future hack.
The key takeaway here is that the breach response being delayed or being confusing actually makes the problem worse. And this policy is certainly going to address that.
Flynn Snyder, WRAL News, Raleigh.
All right, Flynn, thank you. So Wake County will join Infinite Campus sometime before July 1st. Moving now to this story out of Raleigh, a car that crashed into this house. Imagine that on Futura Lane. 5 people are in custody now. We're told 4 of them are under the age of 18. As WRL's Aaron Thomas reports, this all started with a police chase.
Police have since cleared the scene, but significant damage remains. You can see what's left of this garage after a car crashed into it earlier this afternoon. You also wonder how safe it is to be inside, as police left a sign that says unsafe building. We captured the moment that crews towed away the Jeep that crashed into this home. Police said 5 people were inside the car at the time of the crash. Officers tell us that they tried to stop in the car with a person wanted for armed robbery and assault with a deadly weapon inside. That driver is now charged with fleeing to elude. Certainly a frustrating moment for any homeowner to come home and see such significant damage that they'll likely be responsible for cleaning up. American Red Cross is on hand to provide assistance where it's needed. We're hearing from neighbors who say that this is not the first time something like this happened. They say a motorcycle crashed into this home several years ago. They like to see a roundabout at this intersection to prevent something like this from happening again. Aaron Thomas, WRAL News, Raleigh.
This is Brian Schrader in the WRAL Live Center, and this evening we've learned that Raleigh police have charged a man with attempted rape and burglary. Now, this starts last Friday, but the most recent event in all of this happened yesterday with an indecent exposure call at apartments on Stillcrest Way on the north side of Raleigh. Police say they got there and they identified the suspect as 30-year-old Avante Cooper. They say that surveillance video ties Cooper to an incident that happened last Friday at Senior Apartments on Town Drive. A victim woke up and said that she saw a man who was not wearing clothes. The suspect fled from the scene before officers arrived, and police say that that man was Avante Cooper. Now, earlier, Raleigh police reported that he had been charged with first-degree burglary and first-degree rape. However, we've obtained an arrest warrant here saying that he's charged with attempted first-degree forcible rape. We are working to find out exactly what the discrepancy is there with Raleigh police. He's also facing indecent exposure charges. WRAL's Willie Danley is on this story tonight. Look for his updates beginning at 10 o'clock on Fox 50.
Boy, frightening stuff. All right. Thank you, Brian. So if you're just getting to the news, let's roll through some of the big headlines today. These are the 5 things you should know right now. We're going to start with this really interesting murder trial. This is out of Hillsborough. You may remember it. It was a kind of high profile around here. Terry McMillan, the man who shoved down, you see in the video, 82-year-old Home Depot worker there to the ground. He pleaded guilty to manslaughter in this case. Yes, not murder, manslaughter. You see, the worker, Gary Razor, went to the hospital after that for his injuries, but died a month later because of a heart and lung issue. Now, the defense argued that wasn't McMillan's fault. That the prosecution argued, though, that the injuries from that shove did lead to his death. So both sides wanted to find some justice here. And in the end, they settled, reaching a plea deal, putting McMillan in prison for up to 10 years. Far shorter than a life sentence for murder, but far longer than a couple of months for assault. The man at the center of a 9-hour standoff in Chatham County will face attempted first-degree murder charges. Guy 5 here over the standoff on Lambert Chapel Road in Bear Creek. We were told that Paul Radar fired at deputies trying to serve an involuntary commitment order. He didn't hit any deputies, fortunately, but the deputies fired back and hit him. He will be arrested after he is released from the hospital. Here is your daily Bella check-in. UNC Chancellor Lee Roberts says he's delighted about the attention on the Tar Heel football program. That's what he told the Board of Trustees this week. No concerns about the coach and his girlfriend and all the noise around that. Just happy to see the season sell out when it comes to ticket sales. Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals is in Raleigh tonight. Canes defenseman Jalen Chatfield will be a game-time decision. He missed the last 2 games because of injury. Hopefully he's back tonight. Puck drop is just about an hour away. Here's an update to a story that we talked about a lot at 7 o'clock. The U.S. Treasury will soon stop production of the penny. Bye-bye penny. Why? Well, it's kind of simple in a lot of ways. They say it costs more to make them than they're worth. Like almost 3 times as much. You can still use pennies. The Treasury just won't be making any new ones. So Western North Carolina is still a mess. Helene survivors still need money. Lots of it. We know this. The governor wants to give nearly $1 billion. The Senate thinks it should be more like $700 million. And the House thinks $465 million is enough for now. Regardless of which number makes the cut, we know it's going to be big money, which will mean big contracts for specific businesses, organizations, and people rebuilding those communities. It's turned a conversation about humanitarian aid into accusations of quid pro quo. Here's WRAL Capitol Bureau Chief Laura Leslie.
State lawmakers said the optics here are terrible. A company that won the project management contract for Helene is Horn, a company that was also involved in Rebuild NC and also has connections to a top Stein official. The governor's senior disaster advisor, Jonathan Krebs, was the former managing partner at Horn. Lawmakers questioned whether he influenced the decision to choose his old employer for the $81.5 million contract.
Then you're brought in to advise recovery. And sitting in the room shaping the contract, your old firm wins. Tell me how this is not an example of absolute pay-to-play politics.
Krebs and other recovery leaders said he wasn't involved.
I have not participated in any procurement decisions. I have intentionally not been involved.
Lawmakers also questioned why Horn was even considered after what state lawmakers have described as errors in Rebuild NC. Western NC Recovery Chief Stephanie McGarrah said most of the losing bidders had also been involved in Rebuild NC.
You need to understand this is a very small group of companies that do this kind of work.
Lawmakers also questioned political donations made by Krebs, nearly $13,000 to Governor Josh Stein's 2024 campaign and $29,000 to a political action group that supported Stein. Representative Mike Sheetzel accused Krebs of buying his way into his job.
While people in Western North Carolina were still collecting their dead and trying to put their lives back together and prepare for winter, that you saw an opportunity.
Krebs said he made those donations months before Helene ever hit the state.
I'm trying not to be offended by the fact that you just accused me of seeing an opportunity in the dead of North Carolina.
I looked into this and I verified that those donations were made long before Helene ever hit the state, but a delay in reporting made it appear otherwise. I also asked Horn for a comment. A company spokesperson did not respond. Laura Leslie, WRAL News, Raleigh.
So we got some bickering at the state legislature. Who's surprised? But the U.S. Senate? Apparently everything's all hunky-dory, at least when it comes to no tax on tips. Every single senator agreed to this, Republicans and Democrats. How did that happen? And how is this no tax on tips thing actually going to work? We're going to talk about it next. Kat?
And all is quiet right now in the Atlantic Ocean, but NOAA released their official hurricane season forecast today. I'll have details on what they're thinking coming up.
Who says our politicians can't agree on anything these days? All 100 U.S. senators, Democrats and Republicans, signed off on no tax on tips. This was the headline from NBC News. Senate unexpectedly passes the No Tax on Tips Act in unanimous vote. And yeah, I'd say that's pretty unexpected. So let's unpack this whole thing, how this no tax on tips thing would work, and how the heck the entire Senate actually agreed on something. Let's start there, actually, because does the Senate ever agree on anything 100%? Actually, yeah, they do. You see, this decision wasn't some big vote like you see on C-SPAN, each senator casting their vote one by one. The decision to pass no tax on tips was known as a unanimous consent request. A senator presents a bill or resolution, and if nobody objects, it passes. So technically, no tax on tips didn't get 100 yeses, it just kind of got 0 no's. This process is often used for political posturing. One party brings up an idea that's important to them, baiting the other party to object. That way, come election time, they can say, my opponent voted against this, that sort of thing. And that's why unanimous consent is most often used for more non-controversial items, things like increasing investments in semiconductor manufacturing and cleaning our oceans and lakes, honoring soldiers killed in a training mission overseas, or congratulating charter schools. All of this stuff unanimously passed the Senate in the very same session as no tax on tips. Think about that, though. Chuck Schumer and John Thune agreeing on something. Yeah, but no tax on tips has been bipartisan, actually, since the beginning. You remember both President Trump and Kamala Harris promoted it during their campaigns. Republican Ted Cruz and both of Nevada's senators, both Democrats, introduced the bill in the first place. And so here we are. No tax on tips kind of gets this slam dunk in the Senate. All right, so how would it work? Well, it applies to tips that workers report to employers. Those workers would be able to deduct up to $25,000 in that tipped income on their taxes. But this is limited to workers whose annual income is $160,000 or less, which is a pretty decent amount of money. Now, how would people realistically apply that? And I'm glad you asked. The Budget Lab at Yale University found tipped workers made up 2.5% of employment in 2023. That is about 4 million people. They didn't break that down by annual income, so it's safe to say and to assume fewer than 4 million people would actually benefit from this. But something's telling me if more workers can write off tips on their taxes, then more workers might start asking for tips. Problem is, most people think tipping culture is already getting out of control. A 2024 survey from Bankrate found 59% of Americans have a negative view of tipping. 34% said they're annoyed by the tip screens that they encounter at coffee shops and food trucks and everywhere else. 14% said they'd rather pay higher prices and get rid of tipping entirely. Even though the Senate doesn't really seem to find this controversial, it's actually a pretty nuanced topic, and we went in depth on this a couple of times in the last year. You can find those segments on the WRAL YouTube page. In the meantime, let's rekindle the conversation, shall we? Because here we are. It may actually be happening. Send me an email, dan@WRAL.com. What do you think about this no tax on tips? What's good about it? What's problematic about it? What could cause some issues? Should the House pass the Senate's bill, send it to the president, make this thing legit, or is there more to consider here? Tell me what's on your mind, and we will go in depth. Kat?
Let's talk tropics. Not the fun stuff, though, of course, we are cheering on the Carolina Hurricanes. About 45 minutes to go. NOAA released their 2025 hurricane season outlook today, and they are calling for a slightly above normal season. The average number of tropical storms, 14. They're going 13 to 19 tropical storms, 6 to 10 hurricanes, and 3 to 5 major hurricanes. On WRAL.com, you can see our WRAL tropical outlook for the season, and that one goes more specifically into North Carolina. For now, all is quiet in the tropics. In the Atlantic, hurricane season officially starts on June 1st. Closer to home, we are watching some upper-level energy to our north. Closer to the North Carolina-Virginia border, we've got a few sprinkles moving through the area. Southern Virginia having a few downpours. We'll continue to watch these for a couple of hours. We told you there's just a 20% chance for rain this evening. The next big system to talk about is Sunday into Monday. It's going to be this stalled front, and that will be where waves of rain travel. It's like a highway, so we'll see a couple of rounds of potential rain. One coming late Sunday into Sunday night, the other potentially Tuesday. That would leave Monday, Memorial Day, potentially right in between those two waves of rain, and it would be more of a typical summer day where there could be a few hit or miss storms, but not everyone would see rain. And because of this front, there's going to be a pretty big temperature difference from Roxborough to Fayetteville. We could see highs in the low 70s to the north, mid 80s potentially to the south. So just a heads up there, town by town will be important as we get into Monday especially. 76 Friday, 78 Saturday. Beautiful weather those days. I mean, it's dry, it's pleasant, the humidity is low. The next 2 days, make outdoor plans. You'll be glad you did. By Sunday, we're going to be watching for showers and storms mainly from 4 p.m. through the nighttime hours, and then during the afternoon Monday, we'll watch out for some pop-up storms on Memorial Day. We'll send the whirligigs spinning, but not quite as fast as they were earlier this afternoon. It's been a blustery day at times. Feeling great, though. The dew point has dropped down to 36 now, so the air isn't just crisp, it's dry outside. Enjoy this. I mean, it's May. We've got a dew point at 36. You're not going to get this again anytime soon after this stretch. Just a heads up as we head into summer. Tonight, open up your windows. It's so nice. 56 the low. We'll drop down to 50 for the low by Saturday morning. 56 on Sunday. Saturday morning, I do think some of our northern cities, more rural communities, will dip down into the 40s. Once we get to Sunday, that starts a more unsettled weather pattern. As of right now, Tuesday looks like the wettest day. We should be back in the 80s next week. I know dew points are hard to understand sometimes, Dan. You just got to trust me. 30s for dew points in May. It's about as good as we're going to get before we head into the summer heat and humidity.
I don't need to understand dew points, Kat. I have you. You're our dew point person.
I'm here to help you.
Yes. Are you seeing behind me here? Can we take me real quick before we get to this tease? I got a beautiful Roxborough
a rainbow
back behind me.
Nice.
It's a nice omen.
That's one of those showers up in Southern Virginia that you can see showing up there with the rainbow.
Very nice. Thank you, Kat. So tonight's one last thing is all about bees. Helene decimated hives in western North Carolina. So beekeepers from our area came to the rescue. That's after the break. But first, let's get you ready for Memorial Day weekend. There's plenty to do out and about. One last thing for you tonight. Let's talk about beekeepers. No, I'm not talking about the Jason Statham movie from last year that is amazing. What a callback. Oh, I'm a beekeeper. I protect the hive. I'm still workshopping that. Anyway, we're talking about protecting real hives. Ashe County Beekeepers Association is trying to rebuild because they have lost 450 beehives in Hurricane Helene. NC State estimates the storm destroyed up to 90% of working beehives across the North Carolina mountains. And that's a big deal. Bees are extremely important to the environment and agriculture. They pollinate 1/3 of the food we eat. In Western North Carolina, they're responsible for pollinating tomatoes, bell peppers, cucumbers, squash, strawberries, and more. These little guys play a big role in the state's largest industry. And that's why beekeepers from across our area are donating to their colleagues out west. Wake, Harnett, Johnston, Lee, and more counties have donated hundreds of hives to Ashe County.
Thanks again to everybody in Wake County and the neighboring counties that supported us so much by donating these nukes. This is almost $20,000 worth of bees that were donated. And most of the people were either making splits, catching swarms, doing everything they could to help support us here in the North Carolina Western Mountain area, and we are so appreciative. We can't thank them enough.
Good stuff. If you would like to help out with this cause, maybe you know someone who keeps bees, they're of beekeeping age potentially, you can find a link to the Ashe County Honeybee Recovery Project in this story at WRAL.com. Thank you for making WRAL. My Statham's not good. I can't believe I debuted it here tonight. Anyway, I appreciate you being with us here at 7 o'clock. Our next newscast is at 10 o'clock on Fox 50 and 11 on WRAL. Have a good night.
Keep watching WRAL News over the air Channel 34 and Spectrum Channel 1257.